Good morning, everybody. It's the Something Shiny journey again. I never know where. Okay, there it is. So, I'm excited. I'm going to be reading chapter 7. And today, chapter 7, let me find it. Chapter 6. Chapter 7 is 40 days and 40 nights of the Something Shiny journey. You can purchase your own copy of the book on Amazon or online stores or on our website at twogirlsinthebible.org. Yeah. So let's get started. 40 days and 40 nights. After 4 weeks of reconciliation and time well spent with family, I started getting antsy. There was unrest inside of me, so I knew it was probably time to get back on the road. We headed back towards Highway 10, headed straight back to North Carolina. We headed back towards Highway 10, headed straight back to North Carolina. I knew enough time had passed, but I also knew the journey wasn't over. After all, I still needed a final destination. Where would I go? Where's the place I would call home? Even though my head and my heart were full of questions, there was nothing that could stop us from taking our time and absorbing what was on the road ahead of us. We left Bakersfield, California, and headed towards Zion National Park. It would be our last stop in the great mountainous ranges of the West, and I was excited to explore them one last time. We drove for a few hours before we arrived in Zion. The Jeep started the climb up the side of the magnificent sandstone cliffs. The tires seemed to melt into the roads, as if they were one, winding snugly against the monolith's gaps. The canyons were so wide, the sunlight disappeared into its river-carved gorges. To say that it was beautiful does it little justice. There's not enough adjectives to capture the majesty of God's design. The paintbrush of his spoken word casts all of this into existence. How could I measure the magnitude of this beauty in the simplicity of my words? I cannot, so instead we stopped. There was no way we could imagine we could continue driving. We pulled off at the closest sightseeing plateau. When we got out of the Jeep, my dad talked me into climbing over the edge of one of the barriers. He did a lot of that, but it never really took much convincing. I was ready for anything. We sat there for a long time, enjoying the final moments of absorbing the majesty of these cathedral mountains. After all, we were getting ready to say goodbye to them. We both sat there together in silence, in quiet awe of creation. I am sure we were both pondering the magnificence of it all. I imagine God was smiling at us while we were taking in the air, feeling the grass between our hands as we leaned against the cascading mountainside. It was different this time. There was no more what-ifs churning in my mind, no more how-comes, just hushed whispers of a past that had lost its voice. I sat there overwhelmed by being fully present in the moment. I no longer had to conjure up the effort to be mindful. It just came naturally. I closed my eyes to breathe it all in, and when I opened them back up, behold, a new sight in front of me. I hadn't noticed when we pulled up. I did not see it when we crossed over the barriers to find the perfect scenic spot. It wasn't until I opened my eyes that I realized that I had been here before. I had seen this place. I asked myself, is this deja vu? Nope, not this time. I jumped up and told my dad to wait right there. I ran to the Jeep, opened the door, and fumbled around beneath the front seat until my fingers found it. I gripped it tight and pulled it out. It was already folded open, so I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the cover. I closed it, and there it was. We were standing right smack dab in the middle of the cover photo on a road atlas I had bought 2 years earlier. I couldn't believe it. I ran to my dad to show him, and sure enough, we must have been in the exact same spot of the person who took that photo. It was incredible. I was left there with my mouth open in astonishment of a God who thinks of everything. I stood there as if my spine were bolted to the earth, immovable for a moment, as I understood the completeness of a God who plans every detail to the fullest. I couldn't believe the map I was holding. Was the exact map God wanted me to buy for such a time as this. I didn't know I was going on a trip across country when I bought it. Standing there, I knew it was him who prompted me to buy it. I just like the picture on the cover and the memory of my dad teaching me how to read one. It could only be God who knew exactly where the photographer stood to snap the picture that would be plastered on the cover of an atlas that I was holding in my hand right now. It was God who provoked my dad to step over the security railing and encouraged me to come along. I stood there in the fullness of my Father and the completeness of his plans. I just stood there in admiration of the magnitude of his inclusiveness. I understood like I had never understood before that it is God, my Father in heaven, who takes full advantage of every single thing in my life for one purpose: to love me, that I may indeed love others the way he has loved me. God has a plan and it is fully developed. I can consider it as good as done if it were finished from the foundations of the earth. I understood it is him who chose me. It is him who does all things to the glory of his goodness. And for what? To share with me the plans he has for my welfare? Who am I? Who am I to be thought of by him? Hold on one second. I guess my music's loud. Y'all know I'm can't hear in one ear. Hold on. Elijah, turn that down. Hopefully that's better. I understood like I had never understood before that it is God, my Father in heaven, who takes full advantage of every single thing in my life for one purpose, so that I may indeed love others the way he has loved me. God has a plan and it is fully developed. I can consider it as good as done, as if it were finished from the foundations of the earth. I understood it is him who chose me. It is him who does all things to the glory of his goodness. And for what? To share with me the plans he has for my welfare? Who am I? Who am I to be thought of by him? I had never felt so small in all my life. The weight of what God was showing me gave me purpose, and it was full of expression. The expression of his will for my life. He made me one with him, one with Christ, and as he watched over every little detail of my everyday life, he called me out from among the dead to do what? To share in his goodness and his love and his mercy. God's own personal intervention made room in my rigid heart. I shared in the wholeness of his being and trusted in the outcome of his plans. The very same plans he had stored up just for me from the foundations of the earth. Whatever leftovers of past remnants that still lingered inside of me were gone. The awareness of the full and complete measure of who God has filled every empty space in my soul. I was full of the magnitude of what only God could orchestrate in my life. The presence of his power and grace, the fullness of believing in something I could not see was so overwhelming that the awe of him surpassed everything I ever knew of him. In that moment, he became tangible. Someone I could feel and touch. And I knew I would never be alone again. He was going to see me through. And although I had no idea where I would end up, I was not afraid. He came off the side of that mountain and headed into the Arizona. We came off the side of that mountain and headed into the Arizona desert. It was dark by the time we arrived to some of the most beautiful night skies in the United States. The purity and depth of the ethereal blue reflected on an altitude of the weirdest shades of purple. The deep violets of twilight reached from horizon to horizon. The stars beaming light streams were blanketing the sky. The beauty of it took my breath away. As the sun rose, it felt as if we drove across the surface of the earth with waves of intense heat vaporizing the pavement ahead of us. I couldn't help but feel the heat of the Arizona desert as it held mysteries of grandeur with miles of hot dust-laden air ahead of us. The intensity of its sprays of white caps and colors of red, orange, and yellow painted the desert skyline. As my eyes indulged in the secrets of this place, the screaming life of the Vegas Strip interrupted my Indian summer visions, and all I could think of was one word: no. Civilization at its finest never seemed more distorted than it did coming away from the clear night skies of the Arizona deserts. I did not want to hear the loudness of the Vegas Strip. I wondered if anyone noticed what was happening in the back alleys or the street corners. Did they see the needle thrown in the street and people searching for them? Did anyone look up from their feverish assumptions of a time well spent? There's a word that explains everything in this place, and there was nothing I wanted to see here. I think it's probably just because of, not that I'm against it, it was just my mom, knowing the lifestyle that she had. It just wasn't something I wanted to see. But anyway, I felt as though I had already seen it all. When I looked closely, I didn't see the pleasure. What I saw was the pain. As we drove through the streets, all I could feel was the darkness masquerading as light. The daylight hid the vibrancy of the Vegas lights bouncing off its streets and muted the attractions, making them seem dull. For some reason, it reminded me of the stars in the desert and how the starlight made me feel pure, how it filled my heart with hope and expectation, while the Vegas lights were man-made and had the potential to fill hearts with distraction, disappointment, and regret. The truth was, I couldn't wait to get out of Vegas. It didn't take long to drive through it all. I couldn't help but think to be such a small strip of lights and temporal glory, it sure does have a huge impact on those who are stuck there. Nonetheless, our plan was to continue onto Highway 10 until we could cut off and hug the coast to drive through New Orleans, Louisiana. But Hurricane Katrina changed all that. We heard the devastation in the news on August 29th, 2005. We had left North Carolina on August 4th, 2005 and returned on September 5th. At the time, we had no idea we would find our final destination on September 13th, 2005, nor did I know this journey would end up being exactly 40 days and 40 nights. When we left, there was not a plan. There was no agenda, and I had no idea there was a correlation in the scriptures. I do now. I think it's important to include that Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights in the desert after his baptism. The period of Jesus' resurrection and ascension to heaven was 40 days. Moses went up to the mountain of God for 40 days and 40 nights. So what does this have to do with me? I believe it was a period of testing, a time of reflection and cleansing. I had to go through all of this to realize God had a promised land prepared just for me. He was equipping me with the tools I would need to step into the next part of my journey, self-worth and value. God was showing me who he was and what his character really looked like. I understood the truth, and the truth is there's nothing I'm going to do that will add to the cross, and there's nothing I'm going to do that will ever take away from it. In other words, I could never add to Jesus, and I could never take away from him. He is complete and whole. He chose to become the way, the truth, and the life, and bring me into perfect relationship with my Father in heaven. He has given me a way to find my life in him. He is the source of all truth. He is the beginning, and he is the end, and he is all my in-between. It was Jesus who fasted the 40 days. It was him who prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane with great drops of blood dripped from his head from the anguish of knowing he would bear the burden of sin for all eternity. It was Jesus who asked God to take the burden of bearing the cup away from him, yet laid his will aside to take up his Father's will instead. It was also him who remained faithful and still remains faithful today. He was the one crucified for my sins so that I could experience what it feels like to be forgiven. He was the one who said, "It is finished," and gave up his spirit as he died there on the cross. It was Jesus who our Father in heaven resurrected from the dead and ascended into heaven. Why? Why did he do all of that? I have the answer. I know it now, but I didn't know it then. He did all of that for the hope that I might come to know him, to have a relationship with him so that I might let his Spirit, the Holy Spirit, be my teacher. He had a hope that I might come to know him as the giver and redeemer of my life. Who has ever done anything for me with a hope that I might respond? No one that is except for Jesus. It took 40 days and 40 nights for me to bury the past and leave it buried. It took Jesus to show me he is the one who transforms my pain into cornerstones for his use in the future. He took what was meant to harm me and built a house inside my heart, filling every empty space with his love, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit dwelling in one place at one time with the hope that I might come to join them. that's my 40 days and 40 nights, chapter 7. And then I want to share with you guys some can I do that? Some pictures. So that was when all my siblings were reunited. My brother is back there, but his head is not in the picture. It's somehow messed up. But that's us at my mom's funeral. That's us when we were little. And that's my mama. Oh, and there's Aunt Carol and Uncle Mark. You can hardly see them. But they were just people that we've read about in the past 7 chapters. So those are my brothers and sisters and me. That's me. Most of that's me. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. So, the table. I remember, Kim, the table. Kim said that when she read that, the table, she said that she just imagined in her mind there was this table because she sits at the table every morning and like has coffee with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And she just when she saw that, she just thought to herself that it just reminded her of the table that he invites us to come sit with him, that he's always there waiting on us to join him. Oh, and this is the mermaid stomping grounds that we talked about in the other chapter. Oh, I love this place. It's not there anymore. They tore down Aunt Mickey's house because I guess of some damage done with the hurricane. Finally, it took a toll, and they built another one there. One day I'm going to get back there. But next chapter is chapter 8, and it's New Beginning. And the funny thing about chapter 8 being named New Beginning, 8 actually signifies, it means new beginning. So I didn't know that, but I do now. So tomorrow we're going to be reading chapter 8. This is so exciting, and I can't wait to continue reading with you guys. And I love you. Have an awesome, amazing day, and I'll make sure my music isn't so loud tomorrow. So I hope you heard the first little portion of the reading. Anyway, God bless you guys. Leave a comment, even if you just put a little heart in there, but like and share. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless you guys. Bye.